All right, we're back for episode 94 of Digital Divination, creeping ever closer. 6 episodes, that's
Yes.
like 3 months for us.
Still, time marches inexorably on, so we will get there.
We will, yes. God willing, if the river don't rise, right?
Yeah. I've always heard that as creek.
Creek.
As well, God
Uh,
willing, and the creek don't rise.
yeah, yeah,
I guess I just because I had a creek near where I grew up, so I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. It's funny in the wintertime up in Camino, we do get some flooding in our area, and
Mm.
we do worry about it rising. And I literally bought a what's called a floodgate to put in our
Oh,
basement door so
okay.
that if water does get in that area, it's supposed to keep it out. So,
Good,
we'll see.
good,
The
good, good,
last 2 winters it got close, but it didn't quite
Mhm.
get there.
Good.
So
Well, I mean, then that's good news. God was willing.
yes, yes. So how have you been this last couple?
I've been okay. I've been hanging in there.
Oh,
Make just getting through the weeks, getting through the days. But I don't really have anything interesting to say about anything, to be
okay,
perfectly
no,
honest.
no, that's
I mean, just the first thing that comes to mind really is that more recent that I was playing in this GI Joe campaign, and we were infiltrating a Cobra base, and to do that, we posed as basically we posed as the Cobra Cuties, which is a very deep cut, actual canon
yeah,
thing that is essentially Cobra's USO.
yeah,
So we did a show for Cobra Commander and the Tamox and Zaymot and Tomax. And while other people were now you go well I'll do my monologue. You go sneak out
yeah.
and find the information. So that was fun. I
Cool.
didn't expect us to actually. I went into this. I got a kooky idea. Let me do this, and then I started doing it. And I was just to distract everyone to get them into
Yeah.
the auditorium. And then we're like, well, I guess we're doing the show now. I'm like, okay, let's do the show. So fun
Well,
stuff.
very good, very good. Yeah, I've
How
been
about
kind
you?
of busy. School teaching has been keeping me busy. It's midterms this
Hmm.
past week, so I was making up midterms. I have a ton of grading to
Hmm.
do this week, so that'll be. I gave essay exams, so I got a grade.
Ooh, like it.
Um, Also, I've been refereeing. I don't know if I told you I've been back to refereeing soccer again.
No, you mentioned that last
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
Well,
that you were. Oh,
I messed up my knee.
oh no.
Yeah, so I sprained. I think it's the PCL and maybe an MCL. I'm not quite sure. Both. So it's laid me up for a couple weeks now, and I
Mm,
stayed off it for the last 4 days, and now I got to go back and teach. I got to walk around some, so I'm
yeah.
hoping it should recover. It's not super
Okay.
bad, but still, I was really getting into it, and then I just
Mm.
twisted the wrong way, and my body's old, and I didn't like that.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. I get that.
But one of the other exciting things that happened is I
Hmm.
received this book in the
There it
mail.
is. There it
Lives,
is.
which officially, as of yesterday, when this recording is posted, so this recording is posted Thursday morning. As of Wednesday, it's officially released. So we'll talk about it
Yeah.
officially.
Official. This will be official. Yeah, I haven't gotten my physical copy yet, unfortunately, but I
Yeah, you
will
guys
soon
are
enough,
always
I'm
like the
sure.
last, right? They
Yeah,
get it out to everybody
pretty
else.
much. I mean, yeah, everyone else is paying customers, so they should get their stuff first, honestly. But
Right. When the contributor
but we
copies
get
come, right? Then you get yours,
yeah,
or
yeah, basically we got ours, yeah. And we get to see the PDFs first, so
yes, that's
if we
that's
want
true.
to.
Yeah, no, it's 192 pages, and
Hmm.
it has a lot of neat stuff in it.
It sure does. It's got too much stuff in it,
It
honestly.
I was thinking that too as I was going through. I'm thinking now, I wanna, like, redesign all my characters. Well, there's so many things that
Yeah.
you can add now.
There's a archetype in there that I was like, "Oh, that would have been great for a character that I'm no longer playing because that campaign crashed and
Mhm,
burned." But still, that would have been a great from the beginning. That would have been more fun than what I took. But
mhm.
because I was literally playing a counselor on board the ship, and
Right, right.
there's a counselor archetype,
Yeah.
which is fun.
So, anyway, rather than, go through the entire book because I actually think Alex and James and their show, Starfinder Beyond, will go through in a bit more detail because that's the kind of thing they
Sure.
do. I want to go through this as I did with Ron when we talked about other books, is just kind
Mhm.
of discuss writing for it and or developing for the
Yeah.
book.
Cool. Let's do it. Didn't know any development for this technically, I would say. So,
Yeah.
I just wrote a couple things. Some on the clock, some off the clock, but
How does
it
that
amounts to the same thing.
how does that differ? We say it amounts to the same thing, but what's the difference between the two?
The difference between the 2 is what time of day I do it, the writing, I would say, right? On the clock, I get to do it during work hours, off the clock, I do it when it's not work hours, so but,
Uh,
that's just me, and I get a separate paycheck for that, was the on the
right.
clock stuff is just part of my daily job, so and the stuff that I wrote, the very little that I wrote on the clock didn't take me more than, like, a day anyway,
Mhm.
so
Well, when they parcel stuff out, like I noticed, part of the development process here is
Mhm.
developers put together an outline for it, and then and so here it says Joe Piscini was the development lead for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, then go out and recruit freelancers, and they
Mhm.
send out an outline to the freelancers saying, "Hey, we're recruiting folks. Are you interested in doing some of these sections?" They always reserve some sections though
Yeah.
for in-house development. Is that
Right.
on the clock stuff, or is that
Yeah,
something else?
that's basically on the call cost. Like like stuff like introductions need to be kind of written like after the fact,
Right.
almost sometimes in copy fit, and so those are generally reserved for writing in house. But there's a lot with this one. Starfinder Enhanced had a lot of like specific systems that
Right.
needed to work kind of like specific ways, and that doesn't happen. This was probably the most sort of like on the clock writing that's been done for a Starfinder book in a long time.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, after the core rule book, essentially, there, so it doesn't happen too often, but there's often sometimes where there's like, oh, we need a system or a subsystem of some kind that needs to be kind of like taken care of by someone on the clock, maybe even sort of talking to the lead, Joe or whoever,
Right.
on the clock and working out some stuff, or maybe even doing some testing, and all that stuff is again, sort of like just meant to be for the people who or have their hands in the guts of Starfinder books
Right.
on a daily basis and you know, ostensibly know the system better than everybody else.
Mhm.
Not
Mhm.
to say that they necessarily, always do. I've always been surprised at freelancers knowing a lot more about stuff than I do, honestly. So
Well, and now you're Pathfinder, so you're not keeping up with it all, so that's fine, right?
I'm also not keeping up with the Starfinder stuff exactly.
Yeah. I imagine, like, for, the Starfinder 2.0, that's gonna be probably majority of that core book is gonna be
Oh yeah.
in-house, and they're not gonna
Oh
freelance much
yeah.
out, are they?
No, no. I mean, same with the Pathfinder original core rulebook and all the remaster stuff that I'm currently working on. Right, is
Mhm.
all being done in house.
So, anyway, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to this, character options and equipment and, a couple systems and things, and I think
Hmm.
overall it introduces enough interesting stuff that people should pick it up and buy it,
Hmm.
and because you can do really cool things with your characters. I think
Yeah,
that's
some of the things that are in here too are also kind of like made, for lack of a better word, core. They're sort of brought out from things like AP volumes or decks of cards, and put into a hardback to make them more accessible
right.
for people to use, especially like in society play.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and, that's interesting. I don't know for sure, I haven't seen this yet, but usually Alex has been trying to get, books
Mm,
once they're out to be approved for society play, and I haven't
yeah,
seen the formal, notice on this one yet, but I
right.
imagine it's probably coming soon.
Yeah, we said the night we're recording this, the book isn't technically out yet, but I know a lot of people have their PDFs and things.
Yeah,
So, but I'm sure it's when the book is officially released, it'll be closer to that time.
right. Well, that's gonna be yesterday when this thing posted. That'll be when it's officially released.
Well, yeah, when this is supposed to, when we're recording it, we don't know anything.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
this one, this has also got the problem that the problem, the sort of hurdle that's a book like Pathfinder Unchained has. It's like when you use a class, do you get to use the enhanced version or the not enhanced
Right,
version? And this, but all the other there's like all the other class options are just for the the straight classes anyway. So those will
right.
probably
So
get
imagine
approved as they usually do.
those would probably be approved pretty quickly. And then there's
Yeah.
4 enhanced classes. You kind of mentioned those:
Mhm.
enhanced envoy, enhanced Solarian, enhanced technomancer, enhanced witch warper.
Right.
So all of them changed and buffed in some way. And those ones
Yeah.
might not be. I don't know. They might never be
Yeah. We
approved
don't know.
for society play.
Yeah.
Or the same. Anyway, what I wanted to talk a little bit more then is about kind of the sections that we worked on.
Sure.
And I'll start because I have a lot of sections I worked on,
Sure.
and you mentioned you have a couple. So mine were kind of in 2 groups. One of them was in equipment,
Hmm.
and so I wrote all the augmentations, all the magic items, and all the hybrid items. I had those 3 sections, and then I wrote character options for mechanic, for the technomancer, and for the vanguard. So those
Hmm.
are the 6 sections I had. I had almost 20,000 words altogether. So it's like my biggest kind of
Yeah.
contribution to
I mean,
a book so far.
chapter 2 is equipment. So you've written most of chapter 2, with the exception of this stuff at the beginning that talks about what's it called? Progression, scaling the equipment,
Right.
right? Which is, I believe, was something that was written in house, uh, just to get
Well,
the
maybe
all the
half
numbers
of
right.
chapter 2. I don't know if it's most. I don't know. I haven't
It's
done a
most
page
of
count
chapter
on it.
2.
Okay.
I would say it's a lot. I mean, you talk about augmentations and magic items and hybrid items and technological items
I didn't do
and
technological items.
oh, you didn't do technological.
I
Okay,
didn't do
fair
that one.
enough.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
take
yeah.
it all back then, John.
Yes,
You wrote
that's what I'm
nothing.
saying. That was those 4 pages I didn't do.
Yeah.
So anyway, um, but what was interesting, so one of the things I did once I got the book is I went through my final drafts that I submitted
Mhm.
and I compared them to what ended up in the book because I'm always
Sure, yeah.
interested in seeing what edits or uh, developer edits were done, what's been dropped, and
Mhm.
what's been added. Because I
Yeah.
think those are all very informative things. Now, you don't necessarily know why something gets
Right.
dropped. You can kind of tell a little bit why something might be edited,
Mhm.
and then if it's included word for word, then you assume it was good.
Yeah.
And what I noticed in my equipment, almost every single item I wrote appeared. Um, there were maybe a couple from each section that got cut. I'm thinking due to word count,
Probably for
and
space, yeah.
yeah, and like nothing, there was like nothing extra added really, right? Maybe
Sure,
one
yeah.
item out of all those 3 added. Now, what did change is some of the naming changed,
Hmm, okay.
which I thought when I looked at it, I thought, okay, that makes sense. That's a better name than this, and oh, that maybe that one's repetitive. Because that's one of the things I had a hard time with for all my stuff
Mm,
is it
yeah.
coming, especially when I got to character, when I got to the Vanguard character options, man, I just like, I'm just call
Oh, yeah.
everything entropic something. And they got tired of whoever did that got tired of it and they started changing the names.
Sure, that makes sense. I mean, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
But
It's
I wasn't sure, I
typical
was
of
like, oh, I
Vanguard
can't think of too
stuff.
many different names. So I was really excited though to see for the option the equipment, almost everything got included. Character options
Mhm.
is a little bit. There were a couple more things dropped, maybe similar 1 or 2 things added, but I'm
Mhm.
guessing of my word count, 90-95% got in. So um, feel pretty good about that overall.
Yeah, I mean, you should. It's great. There's a lot of words, and it can vary on what gets changed from freelancer to freelancer, specifically what what you've done. But the hope is always that everyone keeps every as much as we can, because in the development process, you don't want to have to redo pages and pages and pages of work.
All right, and
That's
that's my
that's
fear as
you
a
know
freelancer is I submit something and it's not good enough, and somebody comes in and has to do complete rewrites and changes, and pages and pages, and then I'm never asked back again. I mean,
Well, I
so
feel like you don't have that problem at this point.
well, I didn't
Although,
know, you submit it and then you
the,
hear nothing for a year.
yeah, I
So
mean, the hope is The hope
yeah,
is that you got some feedback during the milestone phase, and so like, oh, it's looking good and go this way, but that changes from from project to project from
yeah,
if
yeah,
there's time or not. And one hopes that when if there is time for to get a little bit of feedback when the development is done, but the development can take from when you turn it in, it can take months and months and months,
right,
and then
right.
so you might not hear anything for months, but eventually maybe maybe again it's all up to time and honestly a little bit of like this book having some staff shifting around kind
Right.
of about when it was coming out, so
Oh,
uh
yeah, 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 yeah.
and maybe that feedback's not going to happen for anybody on this book, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I mean, at my milestone, I got some feedback. I was trying to do something for one of the classes, and I wasn't sure what direction Joe wanted to go, so I actually asked
Mhm.
him some questions and
Cool.
in there,
Perfect.
and, he said, "No, no, I want you to do this," and so I did the other thing, and apparently that
Hmm.
worked out well because I got in
Great.
compared
All
to
right.
working on
Terrific.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, so what did you work on and how that turned out?
Yeah, just mostly what I worked on was the narrative Starship Combat. I think we've maybe even mentioned that a couple times. Then I also just sort of want the one of the things I did right on the clock was the brief section that is about the free archetype variant because it was such a beloved thing in Pathfinder Second Edition. We decided to cram it into Starfinder.
Well, I'm very excited about narrative combat, and I'm
Hmm.
looking at it now. Um, there are several pages on this, and crew actions, and all kinds of different things you can do. Um, this is actually quite an extensive
Yeah,
write
have
up.
you? There's one piece. I'm just rather looking at the one piece of art that is so very Star Trek. I'm surprised we can get away with it. Page 178, like that is as Star Trekky as you can Star Trek.
Yeah, on the bridge and
Yeah, the
chairs
bridge
and
picture.
on
Yeah,
screen.
yeah, it's amazing. It looks like
Oh,
maybe it's a Lashunta. No, maybe no. There's
it looks
Lashunta.
like the Shinto, yeah, the
Yeah, but
hair.
I thought it was maybe a full Lashunta ship, but there's a you can
Oh, yeah,
see
yeah.
a
There's a
Kasatha in the
Solarian
background
up
there.
front, and not Solarian,
Yeah,
Kasatha
a couple
up front.
Kasathas. Yeah,
Another one sitting over there too.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean
But
this is the picture.
oh yeah, sure, show it off.
Yeah,
Yeah, there. You can tell how Star Trekky that is.
yeah.
It was just fun to write. Honestly, it does fall into the I don't know what to call it. The GM has to do some work before beginning. If you're using it in we wanted to make sure that you could use any existing Starship stuff in some ways, but
Right.
there's still you're going to need to make some adjustments and write some things down. But for instance, there's basically a section about like, oh, we have a special ability that a starship or starship sized creature has in one of our alien archives. How do you convert it? And how to so there's gonna be some work in that fashion. But once that's done, um, it's sort of meant to be way more free form and free flowing and but yeah, with rules, of course, there's rules but there's a little more give and take about what you can do uh in a turn and how you can accomplish it. But for the most part, there's some things that you'll notice. There's different types of crew actions and that kind of thing. But also one of the things I wanted to make it easier to do is for GMs to run Starship Combat. This is hopefully way more because you don't have to worry about each individual crew member on an enemy ship. You just take an enemy tactic and that's their turn. That's that
Right.
enemy's turn.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. For the yeah, running the enemy is a little bit easier. But
Yeah.
so for normal Starship Combat, I make cheat sheets, and actually in Roll20 and other systems, you
Yeah.
have cheat sheets for all the classes. So it looks like now, if we're going to use the narrative uh, Starship Combat, we're going to have to build new cheat sheets for
New
everybody as
cheat
well.
sheets. That is true because there's each for each of the crew members, and this does include the magic officer and the chief mate. There's like here's some things you can do. Here's basically 4 things you can do on your turn and what they do. It's a little bit less. It is a little more. Um, regimented in that sense, mainly for the how what kind of effect you want to do. But each of them says that lists a couple preferred skills. But I
Yeah.
believe as I was writing it, you can kind of use any skill. They like and describe how it relates to the action.
Mhm.
So if
Mhm.
you're, if you're captain, oh, that one says preferred skills. But if you're taunting the enemy and it says preferred skills, bluff, intimidate, or sense motive, maybe you're a captain who is really into physical science, and you can be like, oh, I'm just going to point out how terrible their ship is made, or engineering, how terribly their ship is made, how we're going to blow them apart, and that could be a good taunt, right? And
Mhm.
that's it. In the system, you can make that roll.
Yeah, or imagine if you have professions that you
Yeah, exactly. Professions,
yeah, that would be really give you a
slot in there.
whole new reason to take a cool profession, you know?
Right. I
So,
mean, yeah, one of the captain actions preferred skills is actually profession captain.
mhm.
So well, I did think about that while I was writing it.
Nice, nice. So you also have in here, there
Mhm.
are narrative starship upgrades,
Yes. Yes. It's just sort of to work because the normal starship building
right?
is not going to work the same way.
Right,
Because the stat packs are real simplified.
right,
But
right,
there are
right,
why not throw in some extra things that say, oh, well, let's throw in because it's part of the fun of Starfinder is also making your ship better. So we're just sort of throwing in some things, and some of these are related to actual starship upgrades that exist, like ablative plating is a thing in Starship Operations Manual, or the tractor beams
right,
and mine layers. They're all in there. It's just that how does that work in Starship Comp in this narrative
right, right. No,
version?
I like so like
Yeah.
tracking weapon, rather than having to roll to attack and miss or whatever. Once per narrative starship combat, a gunner can re-roll a failed skill check that targets an enemy vessel.
Yep. Easy peasy.
Yeah, pretty simple, pretty simple.
And you can
Yeah,
see
that
right after that, there's some like samples. PC Starship blocks are literally like 4 lines long.
yeah, that's wild. Okay, here's the
Yeah.
DC. Here's hard DC. Here's the hit points.
Yeah.
5.
Ho-
Average starship combat hit points is 5. If they're tiny, they're 1. So it's like so you got to hit
Yeah.
them like 5 times, and then it's
And they're out.
oh
Or they're basically the way it works is there's sort of like how many hits you
yeah,
take does depend on how many like skill check successes you make over the course of a round.
right, right, right,
So
right.
it's not just make a skill check, do a point of damage. It's more like once you've get kind of built up a number of skill successes. So a lot of this, I did take a look at the Starship Chase rules that are
Hmm.
that's in Starship Operations Manual, and do a little bit of extrapolation of that. So they work in a semi similar way.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
I like them. Now that I've taken a closer look at them, I think. Ooh, I'm running. Doing 2 campaigns now. I don't know. I haven't looked far enough ahead into the last book of
Hmm.
Risings of the Vast to see if there's starship combat. But I know into Defy the Dragon, there's no starship combat.
Yeah.
Um,
Except for
so
at the beginning.
yeah, right, right, right,
Right at the beginning, there was one,
and that's
and
kind of
that's over.
narrative even.
Yeah, it does have some narrative things happening in it. That's for sure.
Regardless what
Um,
happens, you get shot down and you crash.
yeah. Um, I think there's some stuff in Horizons of the Vast, the last volume. There might even be like fleet stuff, actually.
Oh yeah, because of all the troops
Yeah,
that
large
you're.
scale. Yeah.
Well,
But
now
that
I
may
have to
also
go
be
look
sort
at
of
it.
narratively extrapolated. It's been a while since I've looked at that last volume.
Yeah, yeah. Now I got to go back and look at it
Yeah.
to
I
see.
feel free to you should just try to work these in because especially at high levels,
Yeah,
Starship Combat can be a bit of a bit of a slog. So
well,
using
it's
this one is
long.
hopefully yeah,
Yeah, so this is like
hopefully using the narrative version it'll be
like
tighter.
5 rounds. Yeah. All right. I want to talk a little bit about 2 things
Hmm.
that I wrote
Shoot.
that I like, and the first one is an augmentation. So when I
Mm.
was designing a lot of the augmentations, I thought of superheroes and stuff like that to see,
Mm. Hmm.
how could I build stuff in, and so one of the ones that I really liked, and it was renamed. getting back to the rename things, I wanted to make force claws, like Wolverine, right?
Oh,
Force
okay. Yeah,
claws,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not adamantine, but force. So they cut through everything and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they were renamed a force lattice. So basically, you have force
Okay.
projectors that can be mounted inside an appendage, which is kind of like retractable claws, right?
Hmm.
Anyway, they give the damage you deal with your unarmed strike the force descriptor, and you have access
Hmm.
to if you have access to multiple unarmed strikes, you must choose which unarmed strike gains this benefit when installing it. So basically, it's like installing in one. However, I would imagine if you have multiple appendages, you could probably install additionals.
That would be up to the GM because
Yeah,
technically this is installed in the skin system and you can
yeah,
only have one augmentation per system.
yeah,
But you maybe have a gosh, do the Verthani let you do two in one system? I think there's at least one
yeah.
species that's just
Well,
saying you can
I
put
guess
two
I'm
in one
wondering.
system.
So on this, so if you have access to multiple unarmed strikes, so I guess that means multiple ways to do unarmed strikes. Not can you
Sure,
use
when
both
you're
hands? Because like an unarmed strike is using your head too, right? That would be
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
You might now it is unusual because I feel like we don't specify like the Vesk unarmed strike doesn't say what it is. Like
right,
what
right. It can be
species it just
any
says
body part. Yeah,
it just says you get an unarmed strike. People think, oh, maybe it's claws or fangs, or maybe it's the tail. But then if you got, I guess, another like a species graph that gives
like a
you
tail or something, and
a tail or something like that would be a second unarmed strike, a different unarmed strike, depending
well,
on
yeah, it
how
would be a
because they might
different
work
one,
differently.
right?
They might work differently mechanically in terms of how much damage they do and whether or not they get the
Oh,
special
right, 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 right. Because
wet
you
weapon
could
specialization.
get different levels of the species.
Maybe, yeah, yeah, that's what I imagine. So I could see um why this was sort of not. I don't know if you flavored it as claws
No,
when you wrote it.
that's what I called it, and that's where I was going, and it came out to be
Right.
more generic.
Yeah,
But
I think
I
that's
don't
probably
think
why
I
it
just
was.
called it claws, but it wasn't. That's how I was envisioning it. But I said it could go
Right.
in any appendage.
Right.
Um, now I'm thinking I want to look back at I won't look at exact wording. The wording's real similar. It's just
Sure.
uh, called it a forced lattice, which makes sense. It's in the skin rather than uh, yeah, forced claw. I was just thinking Wolverine. I want to have
Well,
these
that
forced
we
claws.
one of the things, that's great about Starfinder is that you can describe things like
Yes,
have describe them as how you want. You always talk about like what are your class abilities? Are they more are they all magic? Are they all science? Whatever. And this can be just like, oh, I've got force lattice on my character sheet, but then when you describe what happens, it's like
right.
you snick out some claws
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
made of force, and then rip a ghost in half. I guess.
Yes, yes, that's
Yeah.
why I really like force effects. So even when I did
Sure.
Galactic Magic, I introduced the Apocalypse bows because I wanted
Mm.
bows that had the force descriptor on them because
Descriptor. Yeah.
I just oh man, incorporeal things. When we started playing, we went through Dead Suns and
Hmm.
here's some spoilers, but you're going to run into some ghosts that when you're like second level, they're really really hard to deal with.
Yeah. They're
You know.
tricky.
So anyway, so that's one thing, and then I'm going to jump to um, a character option that I did.
Mm.
So I at the time, again, I was playing uh, Leroy, who is my Vanguard in Intrepid
Mm.
Heroes. He was pretty high
Hmm.
level, and I was really into Vanguard. So I was able to write two new Vanguard aspects. I'm going to talk about the first one, distortion. Um, so
Mm.
the basic thing is you can control the natural entropy in your surroundings to bend and distort how it interacts with yourself and others. Okay. I
Hmm.
was thinking like
Sure.
kind of like trying to bend light and stuff is what I was thinking I
Yeah.
wanted to do
Sure.
with it. So you gain improved combat maneuver trip, and you get
Hmm.
+2 insight bonus to stealth checks. The aspect embodiment, once per combat, when you do damage to a creature that has concealment, you gain an
Hmm.
entropy point without taking any additional actions. If the
Cool.
creature has total concealment, you get 2 entropy points.
Great.
Aspect Catalyst, you and your allies within 30 feet gain concealment until the end of your next turn. The improved one is all allies within 30 feet gain concealment for 2 rounds.
Hmm.
And then the Aspect Finale, you gain 2 entropy points as a reaction uh, to
Spend two entry
give
points.
your allies within 30 feet. No, you spend 2 entropy points. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
To give your allies within 30 feet total concealment for 2 rounds. So
Hmm.
I really, one of the things I really enjoy about the Vanguard is how you can really kind of take on this protector role or this helper role for your whole team.
Sure. Yeah.
And I love, well, as a player, I hate going against concealed creatures.
You're
And
right.
so I thought, man, wouldn't it be great if the Vanguard could provide concealment for his party, his or her party? So those are the
Yeah.
two of the things I really, really loved. And this one went in, I mean, as it,
That's great.
as
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so.
I see on this page also that you've written a discipline called Ethereal Strike, which allows you to hit incorporeal
Yeah,
creatures.
go figure.
That's
Where
a
do you think
second
that comes
level.
from?
Yeah. Well.
Oh, I also wrote a lot of things related to that. For book 4 of Horizons of the Vast, there's there's uh, the entropic eye. What is it? The eye of
Oh, the third
the third
eye
eye.
stuff.
Yeah, the third
Yeah.
eye stuff. So I wrote all that as well, and you'll notice
Mm,
there's a couple things there for dealing with
okay, sure.
uh, ethereal creatures as well.
All right, I'm gonna look through your technomancer stuff and see if I don't see anything in here. Phase
Oh,
weapon. There it is. Full fifth level.
yes.
Phase weapon. Make it deal full damage and critical hits to incorporeal creatures.
Yes.
Let's look at your mechanic stuff. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna crack this code, John.
You know the trick now. What's going on?
I know. I know. I've got your secrets. I've sussed you out.
Yes. I put that everywhere now because they're so
There's
nasty.
a while I look for that, I do want to point out there is a thing in here that that you didn't write, but is kind of wild that the for an 18th level mystic that lets you turn yourself into a living spaceship.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I did not see
Yeah,
that. That
that's
is
amazing.
are you big or small though?
Uh, you're a living spaceship. You're gigantic. You're titanic. What do you mean big or small? Oh, we have 1 hit point or 5 hit points.
No, well,
Oh, it's medium. You're a medium
okay.
starship.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's still good size. I mean,
I
'cause
mean, that's
technically you could
big.
be a one person sized spaceship and that would be less
That's
interesting.
fair.
You know?
Yeah, that's fair.
So all right. So I think there's probably a under mechanic. I think I
Let's
did the
see.
same thing. I don't know if mm,
There might already be a mechanic thing somewhere because I
I don't
don't see it
know.
in here.
I did some spell related stuff. Oh, um, nope, I didn't see anything there.
Yeah, there's like adaptive weapon, but that just does energy, different types of
Right,
different
right.
energy.
That's the
So
other thing I like to do. I'm really
yeah,
interested in. There's a witch warper ability that allows you to change weapon damage types. And I thought, oh man, a mechanic should be able to.
yeah, just turn the dial from cold to hot
Yeah,
on
exactly.
your frost gun and shoot flames.
There's a weapon that does that. It's in one
It's
of
like
the
modular
APs.
or something like that. Yeah.
It's a like a mining weapon, and you can switch it from hot to cold or something.
Hmm.
I had a character that had it. It's like I don't know, anyway, um, so
That's cool. Great.
anything else of interest to you that you saw throughout the book besides the mystic turning into a living starship? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty. I was flipping through this. That was pretty cool. Let me look at this counselor again while I'm here. Um, so things that is some really interesting archetypes in general. By the way, there's some real wild ones, and there's like some like things that are just sort of like off the wall. Like you're control. You have a personal soundtrack. You're an audio. thing, or you're an exalted champion of some kind. But then there's like counselor and major league coach,
Yes.
which is pretty funny. Um, it's always a weird, like, a that's an unusual thing about Starfinder. It walks this line sometimes, uh, between what themes and archetypes are.
Right.
Um, because some themes could be archetypes, and some archetypes could sound like themes. Um, God, this counselor art is just a Lashunta with the. It's just a just Groucho Marx is if he were a Lashunta, and also then a counselor.
What
Uh,
what page is that on?
oh, the 96.
Gotta show the art to people.
Oh, sure, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
But he's got kind of a,
I
yeah,
remember that now.
just,
See,
yeah,
oh,
big old
that's
eyebrows, big old mustache.
I can't see my picture here. Okay,
Yeah, there it
so
is.
yeah, like that.
Very, very
That's
funny.
funny.
But you look in this book, has the paranormal investigator theme, which
Right,
is brought over from Signal Screams.
right,
But like I could see paranormal investigator be an archetype, right?
right.
It
I
there's
agree.
That's something that was always a little unfortunate about Starfinders. Like the first whatever 8 or so themes in the core rulebook were meant to be so broad that every time we want to add a new theme, we have to, like, there's no other sort of. It's difficult to come up with a broad theme that isn't already sort of used in a way, right? Like
Hmm.
pilots and scoundrels and stuff like that. And then they got some of them get real specific, but then some of them are too specific, in my opinion, because they just sound like archetypes. So that's going to be interesting to see how second edition handles like that. I'm sure they're going to the backgrounds thing, and then there'll be
Right.
more archetypes like counselor, and then you can have an archetype that's counselor, and you can have an archetype that's exalted champion, and it's kind of fits in the same space.
I imagine they would do away with themes if they're trying to make it compatible with.
Yeah, yeah, they're gonna do it with themes, but they're gonna have
Yeah,
to have backgrounds,
yeah, yeah.
which have a lot in common with themes, but are definitely different, because it's always like themes are always like who you are and what you're doing. Backgrounds are kind of like who you were. I mean, I could see counselor also being a background, and
Right.
then you're no longer a counselor. You're an envoy who does whatever. Um, but then again, you still want to do counseling as a on your starship. Why not?
It's interesting looking at some of these themes. A lot of these are oftentimes people have professions
Yeah,
before, and now
that's
it looks
true.
like some of these are, like the bouncer. Before people might have had a profession bouncer. You
Yeah.
know, diplomat might have been a profession. Personal trainer, rancher, vid gamer. I know I've known lots of people that have
Yep.
done a vid gamer
Yeah.
profession. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting, kind of the expansion on the. Oh, and they also detail more species,
Oh yeah.
playable
Yeah. Yeah.
species.
A couple of them picked up from APs.
Yep.
A couple of them, again, like I said, picked up from the God, is it what it called? Alien character deck, I believe it's called,
Right. Right.
and just sort of put here so that we can have them in a hard book that it's easier to bring to a society play, or your home table, than a
Hmm.
card with all the information on it.
Yeah. So they have the
Plus some new
kitsunes and.
ones.
Pardon me.
Yeah. Plus some new ones.
Yeah, and
New
some notes.
species.
Yeah, this Skuraday, kind of an
Yeah, that's a
interesting.
weird one. It's a little guy. I mean, they talk about the Novian, who's just a little blob of sun, but this
Yeah,
is like the Skiridae looks like a creature, or
yeah.
a creature companion.
They're small fae.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The physical description doesn't necessarily say it's by like quadrupedal, but the picture says it's quadrupedal.
Yeah. Well, it's
So,
about
but
3
maybe
feet
they
tall
could
with
stand
short
up.
legs, large ears, and long tails.
Yeah, that just sounds like Skidamanders with long ears and tails.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It looks like it's like a Skinnermander on all six, I guess. Anyway, so there's a lot of cool stuff in this book, and
Yeah.
uh, yeah, glad it's out.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad it's out. And people can enjoy it, and people can take this stuff and continue to play first edition Starfinder if they so desire.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to it, and even
Mhm.
like it's. I'm excited for when all this stuff, whatever, becomes society legal, because
Mm,
I have a
mhm.
bunch of GM blobs, and I'll just start making a new character that
There you go.
fits one of these. And I'm probably due for starting a new campaign sometime soon, so
There you go.
AP or something, and then it's free game. You don't even need to be society
Yeah,
legal, and you could be a
exactly.
holographic
Enhanced Solarian.
counselor if you want, just like in
Oh,
Star Trek.
yeah.
A
I'll be an
doctor, I guess.
EMH.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's fun.
right. Well, this has been a fun time discussing this with.
Mhm. Yeah, we can always talk about it more later on to get into more details. I mean, it might be fun to I wanna hear, what new character you wanna make with these rules.
Oh, okay. Then
Maybe next time.
let's
Then
think
I'll come
about
up with
the.
one too.
I'll think
Yeah.
about the. Very good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm John.
And I'm Jason, and this has been Digital Divination.